Going live shortly. Three, two, one. All right, good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen, and everything in between and otherwise. I'm your ghost of a host, Lucian Zenner, and whether you are watching this now or through the upcoming article to be written about this, or through any other future means, welcome, and get comfortable. We are joined today by Apex Legends Esports Commissioner John Nelson to talk about all things Apex Esports. In particular, the unusual happenings in APAC North, the recently concluded Winter Cup, and more. But first, John, welcome, and congratulations on the successful conclusion of the Winter Cup playoffs.
Thank you, Lucian, and thank you for having me.
Yep, John will not be joining us with webcam today, but that's fine because we have his voice with us, and that's more than enough. So let's start off then first with an overview of what Apex Legends Esports is looking like at the moment. You just finished the Winter Cup. I just saw NRG successfully repel like 3 teams in a King of the Hill battle in the last map, and that was a lot of fun to watch. So let's go ahead and talk about that.
Sure. So specifically in North America, as you said, it was an exciting conclusion to Game 7, where 3 teams that were on match point were the last 3 remaining teams alive. So we knew that someone was going to emerge as the North American champion. And in the end, it was NRG. So a really exciting conclusion there. But I mean, we had a lot of excitement around the world, and where we are in terms of the Apex Legends Global Series. As you said, we just wrapped our Winter Circuit playoffs, which was the 3rd of our seasonal circuits, and now we're looking forward to the championship. We have the championship LCQ, April 23 to 25, which is players who've not yet qualified for the championship. It's their last chance to compete in an open tournament in the ALGS and grab those last spots in the championship itself, which begins later on in May 22, and runs through June 13.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to a lot of that, especially recently. Now, forgive me if I'm mistaken on this, but overall, 2020 was actually a big challenge for the esports industry as a whole, and especially for Apex Legends, which pretty much your entire program moved online, right?
You're definitely not mistaken. It was challenging for everyone in the esports industry.
Yeah.
We all had plans to have live events. Apex Legends specifically, when we announced the ALGS, announced that we would have a number of live events, and unfortunately had to convert our esports program into online only. But despite that, we've seen tremendous growth over the course of 2020 and now into 2021, and have a really successful esports program despite the online only nature of our competitions.
Yeah, the overall growth of Apex Legends over the last year or so, especially over the last few months, has been especially of interest to me. If I recall correctly, you've only recently enabled Twitch drops. Apologies, I seem to be having some audio issues on my end, but let me see about fixing that. All right.
I'm hearing you perfectly clear. So you're right. This past weekend with the Winter Circuit playoffs was the first time that we had Twitch drops for Apex Legends.
Yeah, but overall, I believe that the even without the recently enabled drops, the overall growth for Apex Legends has been, especially on the audience growth, has been pretty huge, right? I mean, I believe we saw upwards of 50K per channel for the recently concluded Winter Cup, but we're also seeing like huge streams, especially in APAC North. I believe the Crazy Raccoon Invitational in particular got over like 100,000 per stream, right? So I guess the natural transition there is to talk a little more about the state of Apex Legends esports in the Asian regions, especially like how surprisingly dominant it appears to be at this time.
Again, we've seen tremendous growth from a viewership standpoint as well as a participation standpoint in the ALGS globally. In particular, in APAC North, the competitions you referred to, the Crazy Raccoon Cups, they're not specifically part of the ALGS, but they are really high-performing community-level events. that combine an element of competition. There are professional players competing in there, but there are also VTubers competing, and the combination of those segments of the player base competing against each other has obviously generated really popular competitions that have been among the most viewed for Apex Legends.
Yeah. Can you give us a little more context about the history of the APAC competition in general? If I recall correctly, even as Crazy Raccoon is amongst the top 1 or 2 competitors in the region, they're actually a relatively young organization, if I recall.
Sure, I can give you a bit of a history on APAC North and some of the competing players and teams. Crazy Raccoon has a member of the team named Ras, who competed all the way back in our preseason invitational live event in Poland. He competed for MVP. They took, I believe, 7th overall. But he was part of a really exciting team to watch at that live event. And he's now a member of Crazy Raccoon, which has been competing throughout the ALGS. When we started the ALGS, players from South Korea and Japan competed separately, but fairly early on, we combined those regions into what we called the super region of APAC North. And what's been really exciting to watch over the course of the ALGS since we combined those regions is the trade-off of a South Korean team winning one tournament and the next tournament a Japanese team winning, and back and forth, and just the level of competition with each country claiming titles over the course of the ALGS. It's just been really exciting to watch. Of course, T1, a player of Korean players, won the Winter Circuit playoffs, but the 2 tournaments prior to that, Fennel's Japanese team won. So it's just been really, really cool to watch.
Yeah, the competition there, from what I understand, has been pretty intensive. But that does raise a question of a chicken or egg situation, right? We know that the competition in Japan is particularly intense at the moment, but that does raise a question of whether, a question in my mind at least, is the popularity in Apex in Japan specifically because of the esports influence and all the storylines and narratives as developing as a result, or is it the other way around, in which that because the game was popular, that the esports organizations in the region are significantly more likely to involve themselves now?
So I guess I'll take the easy, non-controversial answer of saying that it's a little bit of both. I think we've seen a lot of interest in esports in the region. A lot of professional teams picking up players, just general enthusiasm of players from both Japan and South Korea competing in the ALGS. But also, you can't discount the general popularity of the game in the region, and the excitement that's been generated in region on franchise beats like season launches and content updates and all of those things as well.
Yeah, and honestly, the notability here is that Apex, if I recall correctly, is actually currently the top performing streaming game in Japan. I think that's right, correct?
I'm not sure that I can verify that, but it wouldn't shock me if that was true.
Yeah.
Just given given how popular we can see that the game and watching the game is in that region.
And I think the natural segue from there, especially with me as a VTuber, is that there seems to be a mirror trend in the Western audience, in that a lot of other esports have been using influencers as a way to drive more attention to their titles. And although I'm not, well, actually, I guess this is a 2-part question. First is that what does influencer integration look like for EA Esports, especially for the competitive circuit? And also, given that a lot of the Japanese VTubers especially seem to have, in addition to a purely organic addiction to the game, like how much attention is EA Esports giving to the VTuber scene and the streaming scene in general for the APAC North region?
So I think at times it can be difficult to label players of Apex Legends as ALGS players or influencers. The line is definitely blurred for a lot of players, and there might be instances of people who you can say maybe are influencers all the way, but then there are certainly ALGS players around the world who are influencers in and of themselves, and also compete on a weekly basis in the ALGS. So I guess that's kind of my first point, I guess, is that there are players within the ALGS who are influencers in Apex Legends and in the video game space, in and of themselves. But I think we've struck a good balance in terms of competition globally between ALGS tournaments that are obviously about finding the best players around the world, who is the best player globally, who is the best player in individual regions, and seeing them rise to that standing, in balance with competitions that have a more exhibition and fun feel. And I think the Crazy Raccoon Cups are an example of that. In North America, there have been competitions run by Twitch rivals, and also driven by individual influencers themselves, like Lulu Lovely.
Yes, of course. And Shibuya How especially comes to mind. Especially with, I believe he's hosted a number of his own invitations as well, separate from Crazy Raccoon. But then that also brings up a question, like, what kind of integration should we be expecting in the future regarding these influencers? And even outside of the Japanese market, like, should we be expecting something like Shroud Cold streams or stuff like that in the future?
Well, I think we have always embraced, within the ALGS, influencers creating watch parties around the competitions, and you can see that on a given weekend of the ALGS, when you tune in as a viewer. As a viewer, you have a lot of options to consume ALGS content. You can watch the official streams brought to you, by EA in North America, for example, brought to you by Mildom in APAC North, or you can watch player streams streaming their own personal POV, or a number of influencers have created watch parties around our competitions. In North America, examples of those being, Daltouche, Nicewig. So we will definitely continue in the future to have that sort of open viewing experience where we embrace watch parties being created around ALGS content.
Yeah, honestly, that sounds like a lot of fun, especially with a lot of the Discord cold streams. Speaking of the future, of course, with the ALGS going through 2021, obviously, I don't expect you to be able to confirm a lot of things, especially regarding whether or not the lands will be able to return in the winter. I think everybody is kind of hoping and praying that works out, right? But in terms of what you are able to discuss, I believe Competitive Divisions Shaheen a while ago, I think like 4 days ago, confirmed that the global series will be expanding into South America and Macau off like China's southern coast. We've also touched upon the increasing audience for the Western Hemisphere side of the Winter Cup as well. So my first question then is, what are you hoping to see in the near and midterm future for Apex Esports, and how will these new regions be integrated into the series?
So what I hope for Apex Legends Esports is obviously continued growth. I think there's the potential for that, for sure. Apex Legends esports can can be one of the biggest esports in the world, and I think that we've put ourselves on a really good path in terms of growing to that potential future. The handful of countries that have been added recently, those are eligible for the championship LCQ, and that's something that we want to continue in the future, to add countries that are eligible to compete in the ALGS, and to the hopes of one day getting to a place where all players, wherever they are in the world, are able to compete and potentially rise to the top of the ALGS.
Yeah. Tangential to that, I've also seen announcements from official Play Apex channels of the recent Chinatown collab, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the first third-party collab I've seen from Apex Legends. So my first question then is, obviously you can't confirm anything in development, but what sort of third-party activations and partnerships would you like to see?
That's a good question.
I thought it was a rather
Sort
fun
of
one.
third-party collaborations would I like to see? I'll keep it esports focused.
Of course.
From a third-party perspective, I think the growth that Apex Legends esports has seen over these past 3 to 6 months has been tremendous, and so what I would really like to see is more orgs coming into the game and picking up players. We have a number of top flight organizations involved in Apex Legends now across the world, and I would love to see that grow in the future.
Yeah, same as well. Similarly, to loop back to the VTuber question then, is it too outlandish, for example, for us to hope for a DT Sanji or like whole life guest appearance at a future tournament, either as a guest commentator or on the analyst desk or otherwise?
I wouldn't rule anything out. As simple as that, I guess. I wouldn't rule anything out. There's potential for a lot of folks who are passionate about this game to become a part of future broadcasts, and especially when we're able to return to live events.
Yeah, although I would imagine that for live events there will be some technical challenges to get VTuber on the desk, but I'm sure he can work that out.
I'm sure we can.
Yes. So obviously we've mainly covered one notably peculiar slice of the overall esports scene, and even at home there's a lot of developing storylines. We just touched upon NRG's recent victory, but there's also the return of Space Station Gaming to the scene and otherwise. With the conclusion of this interview, then I want to ask you two last questions. First one is, what's on your mind as of late for esports? What's currently got your attention? What's currently got your obsession, or anything like that?
Well, that's an easy one, not joking at all. Apex Legends as my focus, not just professionally, as you'd expect, but personally as well. I love to consume the ALGS as not just the commissioner, but as a fan as well. And I grind this game in ranked, as hard as many of your viewers I'm sure do. This is my favorite game to play. I'm a Bangalore main, just throwing that out there. And
nice.
And so I play this game most nights, and just really enjoy it, both personally and professionally.
Yeah, I still gotta find a squad myself, but yeah, especially with the Steam release, it's been a lot of fun to get back into the game. Unfortunately, I took a break for 2 seasons, so I have a lot to catch up on. And the last question then is, what shoutouts would you like to make to any particular parties, folks within EA and the esports community or otherwise?
Shout out to all the players and viewers who've been with us on this ALGS ride. It's been really windy, and you know, we had to change up what this ALGS looked like midstream, but I'm really excited about where we ended up, and looking forward to the championship, as I'm sure all of you are, and just, you know, thankful that all of you were a part of this, and because I know that all of you also went through the trials and tribulations of the global pandemic that we're still wrestling with as you know, as a species, and so yeah, I'm just thankful for all the players and the viewers who've been along for this ride.
Yeah, and here's hoping. I'm definitely looking forward to the rest of the season, and definitely hoping that we'll have enough vaccines out there soon to see live events again. All right. So thank you for your time very much. I very much appreciate you taking the time out of your day to discuss this with me and the audience.
Lucian, it was my pleasure.
Yep. All right. Thank you very much. And good night.
Thank you.
All right. And as for me, shout outs on my end to Outcomer. Without them, this interview would not have happened, or at least it would have been much, much more difficult to organize. Shout out to my friends and colleagues for helping me get assets ready and volunteering to mod for a day. Especially for Arya, who I don't think is in the chat, but helping to get all the assets, the overlays ready in time for this event. And one last shout out to every one of you out there for bearing with me today as I satisfy my cravings to know more about this intersection of VTubers and esports, and especially what's been going on with APAC North. So, of course, eat well, my friends, and remember to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more of this. And I'll be haunting your feeds real soon.